So we will start with the prayers. I'll just Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. So I delayed in giving you the homework this week. I apologize. I just posted it. However, this is partly because I was planning to give you 3 weeks, 3 chapters homework, one from that we'll cover today, and also cover a few things that were left last time. So last time we covered 2 chapters, chapters 12 and 13. This time we'll cover chapters 14 and 15. And I've given you the homework for 12, 13, and 14. And chapter 15 and 16, I will give you next time. The reason is because until chapter 14, we are covering sadhana bhakti. And now, and then starting chapter 15 and 16 is Raganuga Bhakti. And so I'll give you Raganuga Bhakti homework together. And I've given you until chapter 14, which is Sadhana Bhakti. So so now after this class, you'll have the tools to complete your homework, hopefully. And then one chapter that we'll cover today, you will not cover in your homework. And then next week, next week, I will give you chapters 15 and 16. But now you have your next homework. I hope that's clear. So, yes. Okay, so now to do this here. Okay, so I hope you can see the slides, everyone. So in chapter 14, we are completing the material that we covered in the previous chapters, particularly the 5 most potent items of devotional service. So here we have the 5 most potent items of devotional service, which we had identified as worshiping the deity, which Rupa Goswami had identified as worshiping the deity, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy names of Krishna, Nama Sankirtan, residing in the holy place, the place of pilgrimage, Dham Vas, and associating with the devotees, the great devotees of the Lord. Associating with the great devotees of the Lord. So these were the 5 items of the most potent items of devotional service, which are here summarized in this one. This is just, again, quick recap of what we covered last time. And in this chapter, Rupa Goswami slightly expands on these, but primarily tells us things that are not part of the 64 elements of devotional service. So in terms of these 5 most potent items, in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami describes that how the result of practicing each one of these items is the cultivation of bhava. So that all of these items lead to bhava bhakti. And for each one of these, he gives us specifics as to how and why these items lead to the cultivation of bhakti. And just quickly, I want to go over that because I didn't cover that last time. Can you still see my slide, or are you seeing the Microsoft Word document?
We can see the slides, Prabhuji.
Slides, okay, perfect. So in terms of worshiping the deity, Rupa Goswami says that, and this is all in your in the Waves of Devotion book, Shri Rupa Goswami says that seeing the deity, especially the form of Govinda, Govinda means like the 2-handed form, Shama Sundar, threefold bending. It can quickly evoke devotional ecstasy, bhava, even in a neophyte. He instructs one to see the beautiful deity of Govinda in Vrindavan and thereby become completely indifferent to the attractions of the material world. So as I mentioned last time, Govindaji was the deity of Rupa Goswami. So we have Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Abhideya, the process of devotional service, is personified by the form of Govinda, or rather, Govinda deity is in charge of Abhideya, which is the process of devotional service. So by worshiping the deity of Govinda, one can quickly get devotional ecstasy, bhava, even in a neophyte. Then he says how hearing and reading Srimad Bhagavatam, especially the 10th canto, can quickly evoke devotional ecstasy, bhava, even in a neophyte. So again, reading of Srimad Bhagavatam leads one to the development of ecstatic love of Godhead. It leads to renunciation. Srimad Bhagavatam leads to renunciation, which then leads to this bhava. And then it says, one who associates with advanced devotees will quickly become enriched with the symptoms of devotional ecstasy, bhava, such as samutkantha, intense eagerness, and avyartha kalatvam, executing service without a moment wasted. So when we associate with advanced devotees, then we get this intense eagerness to reach the Lord, which is called samutkanta. And we may have experienced this, that when we're in the association of good devotees, of devotees who are more advanced than we are, we become more eager to know Krishna, to learn about Krishna, to serve Krishna, to progress in the path of spiritual life. And avyartha kalatvam means not wasting time. Avyartha. Vyartha means wasted. Avyartha, no wastage, even for a moment. This is actually a quality of the great devotees. They don't like to waste even a minute. They're always absorbed in the service of Krishna. And we will see more why in the chapter that we will cover this time, due to their intense desire to serve Krishna, which is spontaneous and ecstatic. They are always absorbed in serving Krishna, therefore they don't waste a single moment. If simply seeing a devotee can bestow such realizations, Rupa Goswami says, so just by seeing a devotee, one gets these feelings, then certainly one will rapidly achieve genuine ecstatic devotion by actually serving a devotee. So if simply by seeing a devotee, one can get intense eagerness to serve Krishna, what to speak of someone who's actually serving a devotee? One will get genuine ecstasy, genuine love for Krishna by serving a devotee of the Lord. So many times we find many different processes mentioned in the Bhagavatam for making advancement in spiritual life. But one theme that we'll see throughout the Bhagavatam is that the Bhagavatam repeatedly says that the most effective process of reaching Krishna, of getting ecstatic love for Krishna, is serving a devotee of the Lord. This is the most rapid, most sure, most powerful process by which we can reach Krishna. And then chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. By chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we get detachment from this material world. And this complete detachment is a symptom of bhava bhakti. It's named virakti. And therefore, Rupa Goswami says that by kirtan, one can immediately evoke devotional ecstasy. So chanting is very nice because it evokes this detachment within our heart. We become more satisfied spiritually by chanting and thus become detached from the material world. And then residing in Mathura, as I mentioned, that even in my previous class, even in simply remembering Vrindavan, not just even residing there, just by remembering Vrindavan Dham, remembering the Dham, can cause such powerful realizations. Certainly one's transcendental feelings will immediately be aroused by actually being there. Srila Prabhupada says such transcendental feelings are aroused immediately and without fail after one arrives in Mathura or Vrindavan. Then this also is very true. When we go to Vrindavan Dham, we immediately begin to have feelings of ecstasy that, oh, we are now here in Vrindavan Dham and we can feel Krishna's presence there. Even a neophyte can feel that mercy present there. So Rupa Goswami shows that simply remembering Vrindavan can quickly evoke devotional ecstasy bhava, even in a neophyte. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, transitive realizations of beauty and bliss indicates a mental realization of one's eternal serving mood, Swarupa Siddhi, which occurs during the stage of Bhava Bhakti. So these realizations start to manifest within the heart when one is in touch with the Dham. So these are the 5 effects of the chanting, and of the 5 most potent items of devotional service. And all 5 effects are leading to Bhava Bhakti. Now, in between Vaidhi Sadhana and Bhava Bhakti is a stage called Raganuga Bhakti, where when Sadhana Bhakti becomes perfected, when we reach the stage of Nishtha, we're fully fixed in our sadhana, then by doing it again and again every day, we develop a natural taste, a spontaneous attraction to doing those practices. And that spontaneous attraction in the practice of our sadhana, in the course of practicing our sadhana, that sadhana turns into Raganuga Bhakti. So a simple example of that is in the beginning, hearing or reading Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very difficult. It's like it's hard work to sit down and read with a book, sit down with a book and read. And it's just like, so much, you have to concentrate and read. But once we get a taste in reading Srimad Bhagavatam, then that same hearing and reading, we look forward to it. We search it out. That, oh, let me hear this class. I'm working right now, so let me hear while I'm working. Or I'm driving my car, so let me hear something while I'm driving. Because we get an attraction. All of a sudden, from being a burden or a chore, it becomes something we love to do. Same thing is like worshiping the deity. We don't find so much happiness or ecstasy in serving the deity. It's, again, something that we drag ourselves to do. Many of us drag ourselves to do it. But once we keep doing it, we develop a taste and the deity reciprocates with us and we love doing it. Same is true with chanting, same with serving a devotee. But in all of these things, if we continue it, if we do it, then we develop the raganuga, or spontaneous attraction. Once we are fixed in our sadhana, we develop a spontaneous attraction. The same thing is also like the different activities of sadhana bhakti, like chanting, like Mangalarti and Bhagavatam and deity worship. These are all the activities, elements of sadhana, and we start to look forward to these things once we get a genuine taste for them. So now in this chapter, Rupa Goswami is saying, well, what is the relationship of these angas of bhakti to other spiritual practices? So Srila Rupa Goswami continues to explain why certain items commonly thought to be angas of bhakti cannot be accepted as such. Are other spiritual practices bhakti or support for bhakti? So what about the other spiritual practices? Now, what do we mean by that? What is other spiritual practices? So, that Rupa Goswami will tell us. Sadhana bhakti awakens love of God by fixing one's mind on Krishna. However, neither jnana, cultivation of knowledge, nor vairagya, cultivation of detachment, fix the mind on Krishna. One second. So someone say, what about cultivation of knowledge and cultivation of detachment? Are these also not practices of bhakti? You notice in the whole 64 items, Rupa Goswami never mentioned these things. And every single day we endeavor to be detached, but it's not one of the elements of bhakti. According to Rupa Goswami, these items are helpful, they are very good, but they are not practices of pure devotion, not practices of pure bhakti. In jnana, one fixes the mind. In jnana, one fixes the mind on discriminating between matter and spirit, not on Krishna. In vairagya, the mind fixes itself on the object to be rejected, not on Krishna. Therefore, neither jnana nor vairagya is a practice of bhakti, of sadhana bhakti. Rather, they're natural byproducts. So they are byproducts of bhakti, but they are not the practice of sadhana bhakti, because one is not fixing the mind on Krishna in either case. Um, um, Remember that there's only one rule and regulation: always remember Krishna and never forget him. And all 64 items are in service of that one rule and regulation. All the 64 items help us to remember Krishna, the do's, and not to forget him, the don'ts. And therefore, you may recall in the 64 items, there were like 20 that were do's, 20 that were don'ts. Rupa Goswami mentioned lists and lists of things that we should not do. So why were those there? They were all there because those things help us always remember Krishna, and they help us to never forget him. Now, when we're cultivating knowledge, and here knowledge does not mean Bhagavatam, that is bhakti. Reading Bhagavatam is bhakti. Reading the Bhagavad Gita is bhakti. Jnana means like philosophical knowledge. Reading Socrates, reading just you could say just Vedanta. These things are discriminating between matter and spirit, but they're not directly glorifying Krishna. And this is why when before Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam, he was feeling so dissatisfied in his heart. If they were directly bhakti, if the Upanishads and even the Mahabharata and all these other books were directly devotional service, Vyasadeva would have felt satisfied. I'm completely satisfied. I've done everything I had to. But he does not feel satisfied until he does not write Srimad Bhagavatam. Because discriminating between matter and spirit is not fixing still the mind on Krishna. The same thing in terms of detachment. There's people in this world who are very, very detached, but they are not devotees of Krishna. Now, of course, if a person is detached, then their detachment can, and if they're detached and they come in contact with Krishna, then they can very quickly become very nice devotees. So that is a positive point here, that if you are detached and you think of Krishna, then you will be able to fix your mind very easily. But detachment by itself is not an element of pure bhakti, an element of pure devotion. They can support bhakti. Knowledge and renunciation can initially help a devotee withdraw his mind from the whirlpool of sense gratification. Thus, they can sometimes support bhakti, although they are not integral aspects of pure devotion. A good example of this is the 4 Kumaras, Sanak, Sanandan, Sanat Kumars, that they, when they went to the abode of Lord Vishnu, they were not actually pure bhaktas, they were Brahmavadis, but because they were completely detached and fixed in knowledge, the moment they smelt the fragrance of the tulsi leaf, they became pure devotees of the Lord. Now, we are worshipping tulsi every day, but we don't become pure devotees. Why? Because we are not purified in our senses. But because their senses were purified through knowledge and renunciation, the moment they heard, or rather smelt the fragrance of tulsi, they became pure devotees of the Lord. So these things do support bhakti. Some scholars recommend that knowledge and renunciation are important factors for elevating oneself to devotional service, Prabhupada writes. But actually, that is not a fact. Actually, the cultivation of knowledge or renunciation, which are favorable for achieving a footing in Krishna consciousness, may be accepted in the beginning, but ultimately they may also come to be rejected. For devotional service is dependent on nothing other than the sentiment or desire for such service. It requires nothing more than sincerity. So, Prabhupada here is actually saying that not only are they not pure devotion, but at a certain point they may even be needed to be rejected. And you see this with devotees. It's like after a while they're like, they're not interested in just talking about matter and spirit and the difference between matter and spirit. They're interested in talking about Krishna. It has to be directly Krishna. So to new audiences, sometimes we may talk about just basic things about like this, because that's for the purpose of preaching, which is pure devotional service. That's very important. But in terms of one's own interest and meditation, the devotee is more interested in meditating on Krishna than the difference between matter and spirit. And the same goes with detachment. That the devotee is not interested in pursuing very harsh regimens of detachment, such that one's mind is not focused completely on Krishna. As explained in chapter 5, bhakti is completely independent and self-sufficient. There's no need to practice jnana and vairagya to achieve detachment. So this is one of the qualities of bhakti, that bhakti is independent. So if it's independent, it's not dependent on jnana and vairagya, because detachment automatically follows devotion. If the heart is full of desires to serve Krishna, there is no room for material desires. And in fact, if one keeps jnana and jnana and vairagya, if one gives it too much importance, then it can even harm the practice of bhakti. In bhakti, one pleases the Lord by one's love for him. Expression of such love requires a soft heart, easily moved by emotions. The paths of knowledge and renunciation, however, train one to develop a stoic heart, unmoved by emotions, for emotions tend to push one into sense gratification. Thus, the process of jnana and vairagya can impede devotional service. So, too much austerity can actually make a person's heart very hard. Like we see, most of the sages in the Vedic times are very irritable, easily angered, because they perform such great austerities. They have to harden their heart for that, like Durvasa Muni. But the bhakta, on the process of devotional service, they are simply, following the instructions of the devotees, serving the Lord, and so their heart remains very, very soft. It's moved by emotions because they're loving Krishna. It's not based upon simply austerity and the strict practice of austerity, but it's based upon actual love for Krishna. There must be some means to cultivate detachment without undergoing the process of jnana yoga. The process of cultivating detachment without hardening the heart is yukta vairagya. So this is a very key central verse of the Nectar devotion, and also major theme. That, well, then how then do we purify ourselves? If jnana and vairagya may harden the heart, then how do we purify our existence so that when we practice bhakti, or when we smell the tulsi leaf, that fragrance makes us into a pure devotee, which we're striving for, but we're not getting that. Well, the way to practice detachment, Prabhupada is saying, Rupa Goswami is saying, is yukta vairagya, which is anasaktasya vishayan yatharam upayunjata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yukta vairagya muchyate. Without personal attachment to sense objects, one should accept whatever can be used to please Krishna and reject anything else. So, real detachment is not to give up things, but rather to use things in the service of its proprietor. And that is true detachment. If we give up something that can be used in the Lord's service, that is actually attachment. Aversion to an activity is also a form of attachment. So being attached to doing something is an attachment, but being averse to doing something is also an attachment. Just like I may be averse to doing my duty, I may be averse to taking care of my my child. right? Not that that would be the case, but just as an example, that aversion is a form of attachment because we are attached. So with real detachment is when whatever we have, our child, our family, our everything, we're using it in Krishna service. And that is true detachment. So we cannot be attached to material things. And we also cannot be detached in the sense of being averse to it. Rather, we are taking everything and using it in service of Krishna. And that is ultimate or true detachment. And this was Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission. We see that he accepted all the material facilities, but only for Krishna, nothing for himself. One should not give up anything which you can see the slides, right? One should not give up anything which can be utilized in the service of the Lord. That is a secret of devotional service. Wow, look at this. One should not give up anything which can be utilized in the service of the Lord. That is a secret of devotional service. Anything that can be utilized in advancing Krishna consciousness and devotional service should be accepted. For instance, we are using many machines for the advancement of our present Krishna consciousness movement. Machines like typewriters, dictating machines, tape recorders, microphones, and airplanes. So we are all about farm communities and natural living, simple living, and high thinking. But for the advancement of Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada accepted everything: microphones, airplanes, automobiles, everything. Sometimes people ask us, why are you utilizing material products if you condemn the advancement of material civilization? But actually, we do not condemn. We simply ask people to do whatever they are doing in Krishna consciousness. This is the same principle on which, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna advises Arjuna to utilize his fighting abilities in devotional service. Similarly, we are utilizing these machines for Krishna's service. So, all of these machines, once they're utilized in Krishna's service, they'll become very auspicious. I was reading just one quote in this section that Prabhupada is saying, that how the devotee of the Lord is naturally non-violent. The devotee of the Lord is naturally very kind. So Prabhupada is saying the goal is not to make people non-violent and kind. Rather, the goal is to make them devotees. And if they're devotees, they will naturally be non-violent and they will naturally be kind. So that is our process. That is called Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya means true renunciation is engaging everything in Krishna's service. A nice example that Prabhupada gives is just like there's a wallet on the street that someone has dropped. So the first person who comes, he is walking down the sidewalk and he sees this wallet on the ground. He immediately picks it up in great joy. He looks through it, and in that he finds $10. And he says, aha, my day has been made. I've successfully kept this $10. Then the next person comes, and again the wallet is there, another wallet, and that person looks at it and says, I will take this wallet, but this does not belong to me, and so I will just shift it to the side of the road and walk away from it. I have nothing to do with it. I'm not even going to touch it. I'm just going to walk away because it doesn't belong to me. And then the third highest level, well, the third person who comes in, that person looks at the wallet, and then he opens the wallet, he finds the ID card, he finds who it belongs to, and then that person mails the wallet to its proprietor, to the person who owns it. And the same three here are given the examples of the bhogi, or the materialist, the karmi, who just gets the wallet that is Krishna's energy and tries to enjoy it as much as possible. That's the lowest realization. Higher than that is the jnani, the person who takes the wallet but doesn't touch it. But still, that person, you would say, is a bit of a fool. I mean, you're just leaving it there, the next person can come and steal it. And that person to whom it actually belongs, that person will still lose out. But then the third person comes and says, this does not belong to me. So then who does it belong to? And then sends it in the service of the person to whom it belongs. So the same situation here is that of a devotee of the Lord. That the devotee of the Lord is actually practicing true renunciation, neither the Gyanis or the Bhogis. Srila Rupa Goswami then recommends that one should not be attached to material sense enjoyment, but should accept everything enjoyable which is in relationship to Krishna. For example, eating is necessary and one wants palatable dishes to satisfy his taste, his sense of taste. So in that case, for the satisfaction of Krishna, rather than for the satisfaction of the tongue, some palatable dishes may be prepared and offered to Krishna. Then it is renunciation. Let the palatable dishes be prepared, but unless they're offered to Krishna, one should not accept them for eating. This vow of rejecting anything which is not offered not offered to Krishna is actually renunciation. And by such renunciation, one is able to satisfy the demands of the senses. So here, obviously, there's a very elaborate plate, but we don't have to do that. The point is that we're doing this, what Srila Prabhupada is saying, to train the mind, to tell it that everything that we're doing, everything that we're eating is for the service of Krishna, it's service of God. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Then we have false renunciation, which is Falgu Vairagya. To reject something one could use to please Krishna is false renunciation, Falgu Vairagya. It is this type of renunciation that can harm bhakti. So, Prabhupada used to say so many examples of this can be given. When renunciation can actually harm bhakti, Prabhupada said that many yogis and spiritualists, they will not touch money. They will never even come near money. You give them money and they'll run, they'll turn it away, turn their face away. Of course, there's some yogis who will accept money, who will steal money, right? So that's the lowest. But the next level is that yogis, they will just reject money. But Srila Prabhupada says, I accept money with open arms, and I do it simply for the service of Krishna, to engage it in the service of Krishna. So if we falsely reject Lakshmi that can be used in the service of Krishna, that is false renunciation. That is, false renunciation. Just like I was speaking to one devotee a little time back, and he was saying that how if he accepted a different role, he could earn a lot more money. But then he said, I didn't do it, or I'm not planning to do it because I don't need more money. I have a simple life and I don't need more money. And so even though won't be more work, even though it will be the same, he wasn't planning to change his job. But here, Rupa Goswami is saying that could be considered a false renunciation. Because how is it possible that the devotee doesn't need money? He always needs money for Krishna. He always needs it. For himself, he needs nothing. But there's either a place to already give the money, or the devotee can create a place of worship for Krishna and you utilize that money. So if Krishna has given us some material resource, we should not falsely renounce it if it is not detrimental to our spiritual life, but rather helpful to our service. The flip side of this is like sannyasis who purposely give up all connection with money because they are they are offering all mind, body, and words to Krishna. So since they're offering their entire life to Krishna, they are not offering money to Krishna. And this is a fact. And so the other side of this is this. And why is in this case it is okay? Because offering one's life to Krishna is always more valuable than offering one's money to Krishna. And a very powerful, a very wonderful example that illustrates this, or rather proves this point, is the pastime of Bali Maharaj. That when Bali Maharaj promised the 3 steps of land to Vamandev, then Vamandev covered all the cosmos in 2 steps of land. He covered everything in 2 steps of land. Now, he could have done it in 3, but he chose to do it in 2 steps. Why? Because with the 3rd step, he actually wanted to show his mercy to Bali Maharaj. He actually wanted to teach Bali Maharaj a very profound spiritual principle and bring him to the highest platform of devotion. So Vamandev takes the 2 steps, and then after taking everything away from Bali Maharaj, he then turns around and he tells Bali Maharaj that actually, you know what, you are a liar. You are dishonest. You promised me 3 steps of land, and you're such a incompetent person that you could not even fulfill your own promise, which is especially in Vedic cultures considered very bad. Not to fulfill one's promise is considered very dishonorable. So he chastises Bali Maharaj, and then to show further mercy to Bali Maharaj, the other more senior devotees to Bali Maharaj, like Prahlad Maharaj, who was his grandfather, he also begins chastising Bali Maharaj. Says, he tells the Lord, he's a liar, throw him in hell. He's dishonest, of course, out of love for him, out of a way to teach them, to correct Bali Maharaj. They were doing this, and so then they begin to chastise him. So then Bali Maharaj starts to think. He says, what can I do? He tells the Lord that I don't fear anything in this world. I don't fear even hellish planets in this world. But what I do fear is infamy. I fear infamy. Why? Because for an honorable person, dishonor is worse than death. And here he's also speaking about spiritual infamy. That the devotee may not even care about material infamy, but the devotee never wants to disappoint the Lord and his devotees. Never wants to become infamous in that way for not being able to fulfill his or her vows. Prabhupada in one place says that the vow of the devotee, the vows of the devotee are the devotee's jewels. They are the most, that's the devotee's power, are his vows. So Bali Maharaj took this very seriously, that I made a vow, I have to fulfill it. And then, as Krishna says in the Gita, Tesham evanukam partham, that when a devotee is very sincerely wanting to come to Krishna, Krishna from within the heart reveals how to come to him. And so from within his heart, Krishna gave Bali Maharaj the intelligence on how to fulfill it. And so Bali Maharaj says that you please, Vamandev, you place the 3rd step. Where? You place it on my head. And that will be a sufficient spot for your 3rd step. Now, someone may ask that in 2 steps, Vamandev covered all 3 planetary systems, including the earth or the planet that Bali Maharaj and Vamandev were sitting on. So how is it that Vamandev's steps were so big? How is it that he could find Bali Maharaj's head to be a suitable place for his 3rd step? I mean, wouldn't his head be far too small to hold the 3rd step? But right now, Vamandev is like the Superman who's 3 times the size of the entire cosmos. And Bali Maharaj's little head will be sufficient place. And there, Bhagavatam explains that the proprietor of something is always greater than the thing. And so because Bali Maharaj was the owner of all of these things that Bali Maharaj, that Vamandev was taking. He was greater than the thing that he was taking. Bali Maharaj was greater than his own wealth. And therefore, Vamandev, when putting his third feet on Bali Maharaj's head, he was putting it on a suitable place because it was on something that was greater than everything he had taken before. The point then being that after doing that, Krishna becomes so happy, he blesses Bali Maharaj and says that I will become your own attendant. After completely crushing him, he then blesses him. And he tells him that you have completely pleased me. So the point being that Bali Maharaj is giving his own self to the Lord, to Lord Vamandev, was a much, much greater sacrifice and service than all the wealth and all the possessions that he gave to the Lord. So that was all good. All the gifts that he gave to the Lord, all of his kingdom and wealth, or rather that the Lord took, that was very good. But Bali Maharaj himself was the greatest offering to Lord Vamandev. So one must give one's own self to Krishna. I just also want to point here one other quick example that how when Bhakti Charu Maharaj, when he became a disciple of the Lord, of Srila Prabhupada, then after being a disciple, the disciple gives money to the spiritual master. So Bali Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he did not come with his family, or he was not married, or this or that. He did not have any money. And so he, took some dakshina from the other devotees, and he brought Srila Prabhupada a few rupees as his dakshina. And he gave it to Srila Prabhupada, and he says, Srila Prabhupada, I'm sorry, I could not offer you any dakshina because I'm poor. And Srila Prabhupada, being perfect always in his response and everything, he smiled and he says, that is okay. You do not have to give me money because you have given my life. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj said that at that point he understood that Srila Prabhupada actually tricked him. In a trick, he accepted Bhakti Charu Maharaj's inability to give the Lakshmi he tricked him in that way by accepting or making him give his life to Srila Prabhupada. So he says, that's okay. You cannot give your money. You have given your life. Bhakti Charu Maharaj could understand that at this point, Prabhupada has taken my life. And he's happier with that gift than with the dakshina that he gets from disciples. So then a few side points here. Service executed through wealth and followers is not one's own practice of devotional service. So someone may say that, I don't have time to do bhakti. So, one of my, you could say, servants or family members will go and perform the bhakti for me, and that'll be my bhakti. So, I don't have time to chant 16 rounds. So, my husband or wife can chant the 16 rounds for me, and then I'll get bhakti. So Rupa Goswami says, no, not so fast. That won't work. One has to perform one's own devotional service. It cannot be practiced through wealth and followers. Of course, engaging one's family, followers, and engaging one's wealth in the service of the Lord, that is bhakti. But the bhakti that is done by paying a priest, the payment itself may be bhakti, but the bhakti that the priest does is not one's own practice of bhakti. The rituals that the priest does can, bring you some good benefit, like the brahmanas of the past and also the present have done, where they would do like yagyas on behalf of the king, or prayers or pujas to protect them. All of that is karma kanda. That can be done on behalf of someone else. But bhakti cannot be done. You cannot have a group of priests do your bhakti. Very interesting point that Rupa Goswami is mentioning. Why? Because bhakti is of the heart. It has to be, you have to, in order to love someone, you have to love. You cannot pay someone else to love that person. Then that's not love. Service done by one's followers. A spiritual master may train disciples to worship the deity and do other types of devotional service. This training is certainly his devotional service. However, the worship they subsequently perform in their own devotional service is not his. If he does not understand this, he may complacently assume that he is already doing so much through his followers and thus become complacent in devotional advancement. So, very nice point, very wonderful point here. We cannot become complacent if we see that my wife or husband is doing chanting, so I will get the benefit, or my child or my parent is doing bhakti, I will get the benefit. No, at the end, Prabhupada says, everyone has to row their own boat. Everyone has to fly their own plane. At the time of death, no one else is going to loan us their bhakti. We have to fly our own plane. Similarly, a wealthy person may give a large donation to fund a huge temple or construction project. That devotion itself is his devotional service. The service subsequently carried out therein is not his sadhana. So, but the service that happens in the temple is not his sadhana, is not his. It is the sadhana of those devotees who actually execute the services. Without understanding this, one can become complacent. Very simple point. So if I build a temple, the building of the temple is to my credit. But the bhakti that goes on inside the temple, that is not my credit. That is up to the devotees who are serving. What about the cultivation of saintly qualities like ahimsa, non-violence, brahmacharya, celibacy, satyam, truthfulness, etc.? Is this also a part of sadhana bhakti? Although they may put one in a more advantageous position for appreciating God, such saintly qualities do not directly cause remembrance of Krishna. Therefore, they are not practices of pure devotional service, sadhana bhakti. So again, even these great qualities of non-violence, truthfulness, humility, which we repeat over and over again, they're not pure bhakti in of themselves. And now, finally, these saintly qualities that we're speaking of, they will automatically arise in a devotee. Saintly qualities do not automatically generate love for Krishna, but love for Krishna does generate saintly qualities. So we mentioned how they're not directly bhakti, because they don't directly lead to Krishna consciousness. But the interesting thing is that Krishna consciousness leads one to automatically get those qualities. So then one gets everything. For example, vegetarians are not automatically devotees, but devotees are automatically vegetarians. And this is from a quote from Srila Prabhupada that you'll see. They are automatically vegetarians, Prabhupada says, and non-violent. So devotees by definition are non-violent. They are automatically non-violent. The hunter turned devotee is a Shastric example of saintly qualities automatically developing in a devotee. So the practice of pure bhakti does not include these qualities, but when we practice pure bhakti, we automatically get these qualities. And who is this hunter turned devotee? Who could say, what is his name?
Mrigrari.
Yes, Mrigrari the hunter. Very nice. He became so gentle in heart. After being a hunter, he was so cruel. But after becoming a devotee, he became so gentle in heart that what to speak of being vegetarian or vegan, like we are, people are naturally very prone to be. He was even, I don't know what the word would be, Antitarian. He was an antitarian. He would not even step on the ants. So what to speak of not eating animals or plants or bugs? He would make sure not even to step on them. How amazing! How it is. Just yesterday, I was going on a walk and I was seeing this group of youngsters around a lake, and they're fishing, and they're pulling out these small fish, and the fish was just bobbing up and down, and they're laughing, seeing this fish die in agony. That is a material consciousness. And look at the spiritual consciousness. By becoming a devotee, what happens to a person? They cannot even tolerate even a little bit of suffering for another person. They cannot even tolerate a little that even a little bit that another person is suffering. But for themselves, they can take up as much suffering as needed. Of course, that is not easy to develop this quality, but we should strive to develop it, like Vasudeva Datta, who had this quality. In the same way, all of us should try to cultivate this quality, that for ourselves, we can accept as much pain and discomfort, but the devotee cannot see or bear the pain of anyone else, which means that the devotee is constantly preaching, constantly serving the Lord, so that they can advance in spiritual life. And the 9 basic types of devotional practice and their archetypes. The 64 ways to practice pure devotional service are expansions of the 9 basic types of devotional service: hearing and chanting, remembering, etc. One can achieve ecstatic love by executing all 9 processes or by just one. So now Rupa Goswami sort of clarifies, well, what is the stage or the role of this bhakti? The 9 types of bhakti, which begin with Shravanam Kirtanam. And so Rupa Goswami then mentions how that these 64 items are actually expansions of these 9 basic items. And one can even do one to go back home, back to Ganesh, if one does that one very nicely. The 9 basic practices and the devotees who exemplify them are mentioned. So hearing is Maharaj Parikshit, chanting is Shukadeva Goswami, remembering is Prahlad Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj heard and became pure devotee, right? Shukadeva Goswami spoke and was already a pure devotee, but he was becoming, so to say, closer to Krishna by chanting the Bhagavatam. Remembering, Prahlad Maharaj is constantly remembering Krishna amidst all of his suffering. He had no other choice. He was in a home of a demon. He couldn't even chant or hear loudly. So what could he do? Within his mind, he was always remembering the Lord. When he was being thrown down the cliff, he was remembering the Lord. When he was about to be trampled by an elephant, he was remembering the Lord. And then praying was successful by Akrura prayer. Worshipping the Lord's lotus feet. The example of that is Lakshmi Devi. She's always massaging Lord Narayan's feet. And the funny thing is, she never gets tired of it. Whenever you see any painting of her, she's there massaging Lord Narayan's feet. She's massaging Lord Vishnu's feet. But those feet are so wonderful and her service is so wonderful that she's always in a state of continuous ecstasy, massaging the feet of the Lord. The example of lavish deity worship, wonderful deity worship, is Prithu Maharaj, who is empowered by the Lord to establish temples and worship the deity. Then the perfect example of dasyam or servitude is Hanumanji, as we know why. He was the perfect servant of Lord Ram. Friendship is Arjuna. He was the best friend of Krishna. And then complete surrender, that is Bali Maharaj. As I told you his story, his whole body, mind, words, all of his wealth, everything, he just surrendered to the Lord. And that is Atma Nivedanam. And all 9 processes are personified by or performed by Maharaj Amrish. Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayor Yachang Sivai Kuntha Gunanuvarnane. So beautiful verses are there describing how Maharaj Amrish was very conscious of these 9 processes And so he would perform all of them, all 9. He would make it a point to do all of 9. And we might have wondered when we were going through the 64 items that, how do they compare with the 9 practices that are so famous in our movement? And this is how they are connected, that Rupa Goswami himself is saying that these are the 9 processes. The 64 is an expansion of these 9. And we should aspire to practice all 9 of them. So if we do these, then we will, then that is pure bhakti. So this now completes our section on Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Now, as I mentioned, chapters 15 and 16 now lead us from the practice of bhakti to now we've understood the nuts and bolts. We've already practiced bhakti. We don't have these doubts and these anarthas and these small petty problems. Now we're just ready to dive into love for Krishna. At that stage, we start Raganuga Bhakti, when we actually can relish the ocean of the devotion, of the mellows of devotional service. So here is chapter 15. Let me see what time it is. It's 10. Okay. As you probably noticed today, I have a sore throat and a little bit under the weather. So I think I'll stop here. And your homework is also up to here. So I think this is a perfect place to stop. And next time I will try to do 3 chapters if I can. Otherwise, we'll do 2 chapters. So I will stop here. If there's any questions on this Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti section, please ask them now. We can now have discussion, question, and answer. Hare Krishna, yes. Ambika Mataji, please, you can go first.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam, Jai Shila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you for a wonderful class. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So the last point we just discussed, the 9 processes of devotional service. Amrish Maharaj, he is it's an example for all 9 processes. So can you just explain? I mean, I know Amrish Maharaj is he was a Gruhastha, and
Yes,
all of us who are actually right now here, they are mostly, all of us are Gruhastha also.
yes.
So I'm not saying that, we can be perfected right away and follow all the 9 processes, but how did Amrish Maharaj, is the best example. He's an
Yes,
example for all 9 processes.
yes, yes. So these verses describe it, how, here, I'll pull up that verse. That'll actually answer our question very nicely then. So, here we go. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 9:4:18, 2020, 9:4:18 to 20. I will share the screen so we all have.
So it's 9:4:18 to 22. 18 to 22, chapter 4, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right here. I now have shared it on the screen so everyone can see it here. We can read it here itself. Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo Vachangsi Vaikuntha Gunanu Varnane Karo Harir Mandira Marjanadishu Shrutim Chakara Chuta Sat Kathodaye Mukunda Lingalaya Darshane Drishao Tadvritya Gatra Srajanga Sangamam Granam Chitatpada Saroja Saurabe Srimat Tulasya Rasanam Tadarpite Padau Harer Kshetra Padanu Sarpane Shiro Hrishikesha Padabhivandane Kamam Chidasye Natu Kama Kamyaya Yato Tamashloka Janashayarati. Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna. Savai Mana Krishna Padaravinda. His words in describing the glories of the Lord, Vajangsi, always glorifying, always describing the glories of the Lord. His hands in cleansing the Lord's temple. So use his hands in cleaning the Lord's temple. That's Archana. His and also Padasivana. His ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temple and Krishna's places like Mathura or Vrindavan. He engaged his sense of touch in touching bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of the tulsi offered to the Lord, and he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasad. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord. So as you can see, he was always engaged in the Lord's service. And this is how he did that. This is how he applied all 9 processes. And I should mention here, this is a good point to mention, that it's interesting that in Srila Prabhupada's morning program, his standard morning program, pretty much all 9 processes of bhakti are covered in his morning program. So if we do the morning program very nicely, we can actually do all 9 of those if we are doing it nicely. Does that answer your question, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. So this, but how about the friendship that Arjuna exemplifies? How does that that's covered in this 9 I mean, in the
Covered, yes.
processes?
So that was he used to embrace the bodies of the devotees. So just embracing, like out of friendship, he was embracing. So that is friendship. Now we cannot have it directly with Krishna, but by becoming a friend of Krishna's devotees, we become a friend. Also, friendship can be like we discussed last time. Friendship is also when we preach Krishna consciousness, then we become a friend of Krishna.
Wonderful, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you for explaining this. So because all of us, who are trying to follow this path of devotional services, and as you explained, if we follow the morning, just the morning program of Prabhupada, especially the temple program, we're kind of, covering at least, all 8 or 9, almost everything, all 9 processes, not just in that maybe 2 hours or 3 hours, but during the daytime, if we follow everything, we're following this, or at least trying to follow this. So thank you. Thank you very much. And I
Yes,
hope, Prabhuji, you feel better.
no,
Sorry.
thank you. No, thank you. Actually, this is a very nice point you brought up is friendship, sakyam. That's actually how we fulfill that in our own practice, which is we become, through preaching, we are fulfilling that limb of friendship. Because otherwise it's not there in the list. I mean, people say, well, these are the 9 processes of bhakti. Where's preaching in these 9 processes of bhakti? So people outside of ISKCON or in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they sometimes criticize that, oh, preaching is not the highest process. Because it's not one of the 9 processes, they say. But it is, because in Sakyam and friendship, preaching is covered. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Indu Lekha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, Dandrat Pranam Prabhuji. Thank you for another wonderful session. And thank you for taking the class, although you are not feeling well. So, Prabhuji, very wonderful point by Ambika Mataji that friendship is definitely very important, even in a devotee, in devotee association, because without real friendships, it's very hard for at least a neophyte, like how I would say for myself. It was very difficult to get into the process of bhakti or to enjoy it. So that's one. Prabhuji, I had a question with giving wealth to the temple versus doing service in the temple. So because we do not stay anywhere near the temple, uh, the only thing I can do is maybe just give some donation randomly once in a while. but how, I mean, that is definitely nothing when compared to going and being able to do some personal service to the deities and to serve the devotees in a community or in the temple. So can you tell how beneficial, or if there is anything at all in that process, or if there is something else that we can do from a distance?
Yes. So actually, there's nowadays, and this is actually a nice point that you brought up, because I was just recently, you could say, talking about this, discussing this, that how many times in this principle of Yukta Vairagya, we forget that Yukta Vairagya includes our skills, right? Our skill set. So sometimes, like, devotees are lawyers, doctors, computer scientists, IT professionals. And so when they go and they think about service or doing service in the temple, then they go and they, wash some pots, or they serve out prasad, and they feel, okay, this is service. But if they're let's say a CA, a chartered accountant, if the temple needs accountancy work, if it needs some, an accountant to take care of its balances, then they will charge the temple for their services. Or they're an attorney, they'll charge the temple for legal services. So this is not Yukta Vairagya. You see, because our main skill is really not in washing pots, which we should do. As devotees, it's very important we do that. We do some menial service, Prabhupada says, so that we remember our humble position. Otherwise, we can start thinking that we're great devotees, So we always have to keep some humble service. But our main resource sometimes is the skills that we have. And those skills, we are obliged, because they're given by Krishna, they belong to Krishna, we're obliged to use them in Krishna's service. So we may be 100 miles away from the temple, but if we are an accountant, let's say, we can offer our services to the temple, or to any community of devotees, or to the preaching mission, by being an accountant for Prabhupada's movement. And that's as good as being at the temple. Of course, we miss the association part. In that way, it's not as good. But in terms of service, it's as good, if not better, than being at the temple and doing service there. So yes, or if we have a skill that really can't be used in Krishna's service directly, like, let's say, I don't know, we are sometimes people have very odd jobs. We are some sort of we design computer chips that, on a very micro level, and that can be directly used. Like the temple will never need a computer chip. Then we can do that. Then yes, we can engage our wealth in Krishna's service. But there's so many ways in which we can engage ourselves. The point being, other than the day-to-day services, there's so many ways in which we can engage ourselves, even from a distance.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Praying that I can get an opportunity like that and do justice to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Like another example is like so many temples I see, they hire out the service of designing their website to companies, and most of ISKCON's congregation is IT devotees who are expert in that. So I think, well, this is a contradiction in some ways, right? If we have those skills, we can use those skills in Krishna service. What is the need to hire outside? So yes, thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Param Karuna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, just a quick, maybe a comment or a question combined. The
Yes.
preaching service within the 9 processes, isn't Kirtanam also preaching?
Yes.
Where we're like Shukadev Goswami also is the example.
Yes, Prabhu, definitely. So that would also be Kirtanam is Shukadev Goswami's preaching, yes, and he's also speaking about Krishna. So kirtanam is definitely, I think, the most potent or one of the most principal ways of preaching. But like, someone, if they're, I don't know, setting up a book table, maybe not doing kirtanam directly, but or cooking for the devotees before they go out on Sankirtan, or arranging the Sankirtan bus. So those activities could be considered being a friend of Krishna. Let's get more in Sakya. But yes, Shravanam and Kirtanam are the most principal items. Yes.
Thank you. And I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, for the blessings of all the devotees. Thank you. Any other final questions or comments? Please don't hesitate. I can be here. I'm fine. Yes. Okay, wonderful. All right. So
Prabhuji, sorry.
yeah,
Do
go
you
ahead.
have anything in the mind about the test? Like, when do you think you want to give a test?
Yes. So we can actually, I can tell you right now. So today's August 7th. So so I think realistically, I think September 11th, because we'll have 3 weeks more of classes, and then it'll be good to give everyone a week to prepare, and then we could do it on September. So by September 11th, or no, yeah, I could give it to you. I could give you the test after September 6th, and then yeah. I mean, it depends. I guess so it would be due by September 11th. See, again, it's take-home test in some ways. Take-home meaning that take-home not meaning that you do it at home alone, but meaning that you and your proctor will do it on your own schedule. So the main thing is that I'll give it to you by September 6th, and then you can have up to 2 weeks to work. Doing some time to work it out with your proctor to take the exam. But then I need to give you the format and all those things also. So I think by the end of this month, we will be done with the chapters, and then you will get a study guide, and then we can take it from there.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Shama Kishori Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Sorry, I can't come on camera right now.
That's okay.
Yes, my question was about Yukta Vairagya Prabhuji. So, for neophytes, I think there is also a danger, right, where you may think that, oh, I want this big house or I want this fancy car and I'll use it in Krishna consciousness. But really you are trying to satisfy your own senses. So how do you not fall in that trap and try to justify, your own sense gratification under the name of Yukta Vairagya?
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a very nice question. And what do we need and what do we actually need? That is always a question. So that's why it also takes a very advanced devotee to practice Yukta Vairagya, because some things cannot be engaged in the Lord's service. For example, drugs, meat eating, illicit sex, intoxication, these things cannot be engaged in Krishna service. So Srila Prabhupada knew what could be engaged in Krishna service and what could not be engaged. And Srila Prabhupada also knew what are the things that that we should engage in the Lord's service, and what are the how not to trick ourselves, like you're saying. So Yukta Vairagya has to be practiced under the guidance of a pure devotee. And so there's no one simple answer to that. Every situation, every case is different. And so this is where, the devotee comes in, that it's through the association, the guidance of a devotee that we understand how to apply this principle of Yukta Vairagya in our day-to-day lives. The basic principle is that the goal is that ultimately nothing for oneself, everything for Krishna. So going back to the example, for example, that you gave, is that if I have a very big, beautiful house, I cannot truly be using it in Krishna service because I am first, going to think, if I'm in a devotional state of mind, I'm going to think that let Krishna's temple be very big and beautiful and let my house be small. If it's the other way around, then obviously I am doing it for myself, which is okay. But like you are saying, I shouldn't mistake it as Yukta Vairagya when it's not. It's okay if I have the material desire and I want a nice big house, but then I should not say that, oh, I'm doing this only for the reason of engaging in Krishna service. Obviously, that's not the reason, right? But what Yukta Vairagya tells us is that even if it is my desire, and I did it with my material desire, now that I have it, or I have decided to get it, I can still purify my existence, and I can purify that and use it in Krishna service. So everything I can now can be used in Krishna service. So, okay, I got the home, but now because I have the home, I should invite devotees to my home. I should regularly hold programs at my home. Therefore, that I should utilize the home. Otherwise, the home will become my prison. The home will become the source of my bondage. So now that I have a home, it's important that I share it with the devotees. Let the devotees also stay. In this way, the home will be used in Krishna service. Just like I was observing, I live in a community where there's very big homes, and some homes are very big. And you notice that we've always noticed that the homes that are the bigger ones, they have the fewest number of people. So you walk by them, there's like 2 people in there. It's big, beautiful. And like in the apartments and in the small homes, there'll be like 5, 6 people living there. And the reason is, realize that it's because once you have a big, beautiful home, you become very possessive of it, right? That's the material consciousness. And then you actually have something very valuable. You become very possessive of it. So then it's like everyone else should leave, or you don't want anyone else there. No extended family, or no, you could say devotees, or no this, that, because all of a sudden it's like, I want to enjoy this home. And then when you don't really have anything, then, everyone can come, there's space for everyone, because the person does not possess anything. So this is, so that is the thing, that actually that's the way material energy works. So therefore, to break that, the point is to break that, the devotee doesn't have to give it up. The devotee just makes it a point to then use it, everything in Krishna service. That, okay, I do have the material desire. I recognize that I have it. And that's okay, because the material desires, that's why we're in the material world. But the way out of this situation is if I recognize that I don't need this for myself, and I want to use it for Krishna service.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I think one of the key messages, in your answer was, again, checking with our Gurujan, and, if we are ever in doubt, senior devotees, is this really for myself or for Krishna? Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, wonderful. So I think we've answered all the questions. So I apologize for not being completely well, but we still got through one chapter, and congratulations on finishing the sadhana bhakti section. And I hope it's inspired you in your own sadhana bhakti. And next week we will start with Raganuga Bhakti. Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Nectar devotion ki,
Jai.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We feel better. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.